You with RT. Now, Russian space scientists are struggling to get the country's first interplanetary mission in 15 years back on track. They've been trying to re-establish a connection with a probe which was launched on Wednesday. It was due to head to the biggest Martian moon, that of Phobos, but technical problems meant it became stuck in orbit. For more, I'm now joined by Peter Oliver, who has been closely following this story. Peter, thanks for coming on the programme today. This really is quite a big story with a lot of angles to it. I mean, what are the chances that they'll be able to actually get things back on track, or is this possibly one hugely expensive error?
Well, if they are to fix the problem with the Phobos Grunt probe, then they're going to have to find out what the problem is in order for them to do that. Now, at the moment, the theories around what problem has caused the probe to be stuck in orbit around the Earth after its takeoff split into two camps, whether it's a problem with the software of the probe or a problem with the hardware of the probe. Now, if it's a problem with the software, that's something that potentially can be fixed. Now, one theory that's been put forward is that it's a problem with the navigation system of the probe. These type of probes, when they're launched, initially use the sun as their main focus point for navigation, and then that navigation system switches over towards the stars. Now, some people believe that this probe has failed in switching from the sun to the stars, and if they can send a software patch and upload that patch to the probe, it should be able to go about its mission just a few days late. Now, the big problems come and arise if it turns out to be a problem with the hardware. Now, that pretty much spells curtains for the Phobos Grunt probe system, probe mission, and that means that there's going to be another problem facing Roscosmos and all the scientists behind this mission.
All right, Peter, so as you're saying, it could be a software problem that could be salvageable. Then you also just mentioned just now, if it's a hardware problem, that could be the end of the road for this Phobos probe. You know, it really has all the makings of a Hollywood movie. You know, send in some sort of rescue team to salvage this satellite, this rocket and its probe that ultimately now is kind of floating dead in orbit. That from what I understand is it's a degrading orbit that is coming closer to Earth. Is there any risks this could break up? I mean, does it have a toxic payload on board or anything like that?
Well, it is currently floating in orbit around Earth, and if it does prove to be a hardware problem, of course, as I said, that spells the end of this mission, and we then have to face the situation of the satellite returning to Earth. And yes, indeed, it does have toxic elements on board. The Phobos probe contains 7 tons of highly toxic fuel. Of course, this fuel was intended on sending it from Earth to the Moon and Mars and then back to Earth. So there's a lot of fuel on board there. One NASA expert has referred to the Phobos Grunt probe as the most toxic falling satellite ever. So this is a problem that Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, are facing, that they may have to come up with some kind of contingency plan to deal with a potentially toxic problem caused by the fuel that's on board this probe. However, they do have, and they are saying they have around 10 days to come up with some form of contingency plan should the worst come to the worst and the probe not be salvageable. They have around 10 days in order to come up with a system to make sure that it poses no threat to us here on Earth.
All right, Peter, so 10 days and that clock is ticking. RT's correspondent Peter Oliver.